And so in this video, I'm basically going to break down some news that's coming out around Josh Jackson. There's some positive news. So in this video, I'm basically going to be covering Josh Jackson. There's some positive news. What's going on, everybody? It is Luke Bella with the Sideline Scoop, and today we have some more news out of Packers training camp. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Josh Jackson. There's been some good positive news surrounding him, which is good considering the first 2 years here in Green Bay haven't been super pretty for Josh Jackson. So maybe there's some hope in the air for that. And then we're also going to be covering Jamaal Williams and sort of the battle between Jamaal Williams and AJ Dillon, because I think that's sort of what's going on right now. So we'll sort of take a look at both of those things in today's video. All right, everybody. So Josh Jackson. So there's been some good news. After the first few days of training camp, people have been like, this guy looks pretty good. He's playing pretty well. He's covering people. He's defending balls well. He apparently almost had a few interceptions. I guess he didn't completely have the interception, but he was close. So it seems to be that Josh Jackson is performing well. And I think that coming into year 3, this is a super big year for Josh Jackson, because when you take a look back, when the Packers drafted him in 2018, there was like tons of high hopes for him that he could be this great, solid cornerback. And so in 2018, he played in 68% of the defensive snaps. And when he was playing, he allowed a completion percentage of 67%, targeted 66 times. He allowed 4 touchdowns. And when QBs targeted him, they had a passer rating of 112.7. So as you can tell from those stats, he really struggled in his first year coming into the league. He didn't really live up to the hopes that the Packers had initially for him. And one of the biggest things is he really just struggled with man coverage in that first season. And so I think then coming into year 2, people maybe wondered, can he be the player that the Packers initially thought he could be? And then unfortunately, he injured himself in training camp to start last season in 2019. And, it sort of was downhill from there. He only played in 10% of snaps. So I don't know what that number is, but 10% of snaps in 2019. And he basically slid down the cornerback depth chart. And so now coming into year 3, I think it's a very crucial year for him, because if he can't have a good season, if he can't show that he has what it takes, basically, I don't really know what the future holds for him after this year. But so I think this is a big make or break year for Josh Jackson. Can he be the player that the Packers initially thought he was and sort of move into that role, or were those expectations just not very realistic, I guess? And so coming into year 3, it's a super big year for him. But apparently he's been playing really well these first few games, so maybe this can be the year that Josh Jackson breaks through and really becomes a player that the Packers initially thought he was. So if we take a look at this cornerback position, we of course have Jamaal Alexander and Kevin King, sort of the top 2 cornerbacks this year, and they're both very solid cornerbacks, some of the best, young rising cornerbacks in the league. And so, with Josh Jackson coming in, I'm not exactly sure where his spot would be, because, we of course have Jamaal Alexander and Kevin King already there. And then with Jamaal Williams leaving, he sort of played a lot in that, slot corner role. He played there in 73% of his snaps last season. And so, of course, he's gone. But if we take a look, Chandon Sullivan last year did super well in the snaps he played. He played in, I think it was 34% of defensive snaps. If we take a look at his stats, basically, he was targeted 31 times. He allowed 11 completions, 1 interception with 6 passes defended. And so Chandon Sullivan, in the snaps that he played last season, he was a solid corner. And so I think that it makes sense that he would come in and fill Jamaal Williams' role. So we'll really have to see what happens. And so that begs the question, where would Josh Jackson be? Because apparently I've read that he's not as good when it comes to man coverage, and so it would make more sense for him to be on the outside. But of course, we have Jamaal Alexander and Kevin King there, so maybe he could be like the 3rd cornerback in that role, maybe switch in and out occasionally. So I don't really know what the role is for Josh Jackson, because it looks like Chandon Sullivan is a solid corner. We'll have to see, with him playing more time in 2020, if he can keep up those stats that he basically showed us last year. But, hopefully Josh Jackson can really pull it out and do well in his upcoming third year. All right, sweet. So now when we take a look at the running back situation going on right now, of course, we have Aaron Jones, who's in his final year of his contract. Jamaal Williams, also in his final year of his contract. And of course, we drafted AJ Dillon in the 2nd round, and he's been looking super good. And so I think the question is, what will the running back situation look like this season and maybe next year as well? Of course, Aaron Jones, of course, no question, is the number 1 guy. He's been one of the best running backs in the league, especially last season. But I think the question is, will AJ Dillon sort of take Jamaal Williams' role? I think people have been wondering that, considering, sort of how good AJ Dillon has looked in these first few practices. Of course, his legs, as we talked about in a few videos ago, he looks like a beast. He looks like he can really just run people over. And so, does that mean with the Packers drafting AJ Dillon in the 2nd round, you'd have to think that with Jamaal Williams' year ending, they're going to be probably getting rid of one of these running backs. You know, maybe Aaron Jones, you know, requires too much to be paid, but it seems recently like talks have said that like Packers, it's a priority for the Packers to sign Aaron Jones. So it seems like they're going to re-sign Aaron Jones, but we'll have to wait and see. So that begs the question, will they re-sign Jamaal Williams, or will this be his last year in Green Bay? And yesterday he was interviewed, and they were sort of asking him about the entire situation. And of course, Jamaal Williams, always a funny, happy guy, showed up wearing like a Joker mask. And they were sort of asking about the situation. He was basically saying, you know, he's all about being competitive with himself, basically being the best player that he can be. This entire offseason, he's been working hard. Apparently, he was training in Arizona. And he was talking about how he sort of wants to be like Walter Payton, sort of the way his work ethic, how he sort of trained in the offseason. And so, will A.J. Dillon come in and take Jamaal Williams' spot? I mean, we'll have to see this year. But if we take a look at Jamaal Williams' stats from last season here, he had a solid year. So he had 107 attempts, 460 rushing yards, averaged 4.3 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. So he had his best year when it came to, you know, yards per carry, which I think is a solid stat. 4.3 yards per carry is definitely, you know, very solid when it comes to, you know, running the ball. And then when he came to receiving, 39 receptions, 253 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So definitely when it came to receiving, his best year when it came to touchdowns, because you can see no touchdowns receiving in 2018 with 2019. He sort of showed himself to be a solid pass catcher. And so I don't think that A.J. Dillon is just going to right away come in and take Jamaal Williams' spot. I think he'll have to work towards that and sort of gain the trust of the offense. I think it is possible, but honestly, I think that this is just a battle. We'll just have to watch and sort of see who can end up becoming that second running back. I think they're going to use all 3 running backs this year because they all seem like they have, you know, just seem like all 3 solid running backs. And so Aaron Jones, of course, will be the main guy, and maybe then they'll switch in and out Jamaal Williams and A.J. Dillon. That's sort of what I see happening. And so maybe after this year, it could be Jamaal Williams' last year, but honestly, we'll just have to wait and see really how good A.J. Dillon is. I think if A.J. Dillon is a solid, stellar running back, like lots of people think he can be, I sort of think that Jamaal Williams will end up leaving it after this year, especially if the Packers sign Aaron Jones. But that's basically what I wanted to cover in this video. Some of the things I took from yesterday, some interviews, some news coming out of Packers training camp. If you guys have not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel down below if you want to continue to see some more Packers content. So that's going to be all for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.